Hey guys, so as promised, today we are going to be going over Nina. So Nina has two different loadouts as a summoner and a magic meister, but I'm only going to be previewing her summoner today because that is the only one that's going to be different from Japan and global. So let's go ahead and take a look at her Kaigan. So I like to have Nina as a 553 Kaigan unit. Gate 1 always for the stats. Now for her Gate 2, her Summoner JE is going to be getting a passive that gives her 80 Dark Exploit, which will give her additional damage against Dark units when she uses Light skills. This can be used by both her Magic Meister and her Summoner, but I think that it benefits her Summoner more because on Magic Meister you generally want to run this Snowball. Now, this passive will be upgraded in her Kaigan to give an additional 10% HP and 8% speed. Now, for her leader skill, I don't think her leader skill is that good. It's 40% magic, 10% cast time down, and 20% unit defense. And honestly, this is just completely eclipsed by units like Aisha, Zane, or even Viability. So I really don't think that you should invest the sins into her Gate 3. But 553 I think works very well for Nina. And it'll let her run two different kinds of setups. So let's go ahead and take a look at her Kaigan, or not her Kaigan, her Nenso. So Nina does have her own Nenso, and it is a relatively good Nenso. So the base stats on it is speed, and for the longest time this was the only Saga Nenso. And as you can see, it gives 258 HP to Saga units in the group. Now, for this magic defense, this is going to be for the Scarlet Flame Knights here, the 49 magic defense. And if Nina is holding the Nenso, Gerard, Vettel, Natalie, and Ren will get additional starting jewels, physical attack, and slash damage as shown by the 6 starting jewels, 49 attack, and 7 slash damage on that group skill right there. This isn't going to be very helpful though because you generally will never run those people in the same team. Now as for the final group here, this is Dark Resistance and minus 12 cast time ratio. And this will help Nina a lot because I'm sure as everyone knows, summoners have extremely long cast time, so anything to reduce that is going to be helpful. Which is one of the reasons why Viability would actually work very well as a leader skill for Nina. So let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of her gear. So Nina does have her own VCR staff. It gives 40 magic defense, 50 magic attack, and 10 speed. And it has its own weapon ability, which I will go over when we go into the map itself. This is probably the best staff in the game. It has the most magic attack with the highest speed on all staves. But it does not have any max jewels on it. So if you want max jewels, you're not going to be using this staff. But in general, I think this is a fair trade-off, especially when you see what the weapon ability is capable of doing. So for the rest of her gear, I think I went over the Light Bunny when I did the Chloe video, but I'm just going to go over it again real fast. So the stats on the Light Bunny is 40 magic defense, 10 speed, 30 debuff resistance, and 5 jewel gain. So the reason we like to run the Light Bunny is because in the actual map itself, she will get an additional 50 physical defense, 5 agility, and plus 15 light all damage. Which, since it's a buff, it will not be affected by other gear. Although I don't think that there is any other gear. Well, actually, no, there is that new Suzu VCR from the Valentine's event that gives light. So yeah, you could actually stack that on if you wanted. But anyways, an additional 15 light all damage is really, really good, especially on a piece of gear. It'll help her do more damage than she otherwise could. Now, as for the Red Bunny, now this can be interchanged with the regen armor. The reason I have it on Nina right now is because you do only get 3 regen armor, and most maps let you field 4 units, or sometimes even 5 units, so you kind of have to pick and choose which units get your regen armors. And in Nina's case, because she has access to the Magic Meister reactive, she isn't in super danger of getting just slaughtered by physical attacks, which means she can afford to run something that's a little less safe than regen armor is, and also because she is in a summoner build right now, she doesn't have to actually be in the fray like Magic Meister would do to gain more jewels. So in this case, being able to benefit from the 10 Dark exploit that is on the Red Rabbit is actually a pretty nice bonus for her. And the 390 HP isn't super high, but it is enough, and it is a piece of HP gear, which, if you don't know, you should always be running HP gear on all of your units. It's more important than your attack stat. It really is, especially in the post-Kaigan content era. Now, this red bunny will also give you an additional 30 physical attack, physical defense, magic attack, and magic defense as a buff in the map, giving you even more damage than something like a regen armor would be capable of giving. However, this last slot is not super important. If you don't have the light bunny, you can sub in other things. There might be maps where you need the Fujiga VCR to minimize the amount of arrow and magic damage you take in the beginning. Saint Meteor, as always, a great option. Same thing with the Teddy, never a bad option. There really isn't too many other things. I guess there is the Fiona VCR, and you do have that Chipmunk gear in Global 2. That'll allow her to do more damage because, as a summoner, she is typed into the magic modifier, so this does benefit her. Although you don't really need the accuracy off the Fiona Nenso as a summoner, because at the very least, your large AoE attacks are sure hits. So, let's go into your loadout. So, you're going to be running the Summoner main, as well as the Armor Mage sub, and I believe you guys call it Battle Mage in Global. She has the Pain Protection reactive from her Magic Meister, and that's pretty much the only one you're going to be running. The Summoner does have that 100% counter, but honestly, damage mitigation in this game is always going to be significantly better than a counter skill, like in almost all cases. So as for her passives, you're going to want to run Sorcery Pair for the extra magic attack, and when you're running Summoner, I suggest running the Kaigan passive, the upgraded Kaigan passive for the extra HP, speed, and Dark exploit. Although nothing ever says that you can't run the Snowball on her, you do have to remember that some maps have a lot of those breakable walls, and breakable walls do count for that Snowball. So if you're running Clever Charge and you have a map with a lot of walls and you break it down with a Snowball, all of a sudden you're going to have an insane amount of magic attack. Although in those cases, I might switch out Sorcery Pair instead. It'd probably depend on the map, and you're going to have to use your best judgment here. But while we're here, let's just take a quick look at her loadout for her Magia Controller, or her Magic Meister. So you're going to run the Magic Meister main, sub, and reactive, along with the Sorcery Pair on her passive and the Clever Charge. So the main reason we run the Sorcery Pair is to give her more damage to be able to start her Snowball easier. I really am not a huge fan of the Dark Exploit passive on her Magia Controller, or Magic Meister rather. I promise you, I will get this right one of these days. I just called it Magia Controller for so long, it's sometimes hard to switch. I mess up all the time on the Japanese and global terms. I'm sure you guys notice the small bits and pieces I mess up here and there. But anyways, the main reason I do that is because I prefer the Sorcery Pair over the Dark Exploit, is because not all of the Magic Controller attacks are light, and she has very, very limited number of casts with them, so she can only abuse it a little bit, as opposed to the Sorcery Pair, which will then affect her normal attack and among other things, and her other skills that aren't typed. So that's just a personal preference on mine. As far as the viability of each of these, they are both very viable ways to run Nina. She does well as both of them, but she does need to be level 85 for Summoner to work, is the first stipulation. And the second issue is there are a lot of light Magia Controllers, and you never want to run more than one Magia Controller to max on a map unless you need it for the actual skill set itself and you don't plan on snowballing. The Magic Meister or Magic Controller Snowball is based on the amount of kills that unit has received. So if you're sharing kills between different Magic Meisters, you can't snowball one of them out of control. Instead, you'll just be left with two above average units that aren't just completely dominating like, let's say, Aisha could be. I do have an Aisha video out of her soloing the Scar EX Plus, and she abused the snowball to great effect, to the point where she was launching like 10k damage AoEs from her Sage sub, which is ridiculous. Nina isn't going to be able to do anything like that, unfortunately, because her subs do not tend well to the Magia controller or Magic Meister Snowball like Aisha's does, but she's still a very good unit overall. One thing I did want to point out is that on your next POTK run, you should get access to this piece of gear here, which I believe is Freykugels, or it's a Thunder Cannoneer unit from POTK, and this will give you 30 magic attack, 30 magic defense, and 5 missile mod, which will affect her Magic Meister's damage, and this is very good if you don't have attacked. It's actually almost as good as the 4-star tact when it's 5-star. It's a very good piece of gear to have, although if you get a hold of Aisha's limited swimsuit Nenso, and you get a hold of the VCR, this is going to be best in slot on any Magia controller in the game. And for Nina, this is especially good because the weapon ability on this particular tact has 2 light attacks on it. So if you did decide to run the Dark Exploit on her Magic Meister, you could use that to help get yourself some extra light skills. So let's go ahead and hop into a map here and show off what she's capable of. So I'm not going to actually preview the Magic Meister. I think I might have already said that because you already know what that does. But what you probably don't know is exactly what the changes to her Summoner Kit is. So the majority of the Summoner Kit has not changed. The only change is 2 attacks, one from the Babel Tactics at level 85, and the other is coming from the VCR itself. So let's just take a quick look at the VCR skill. So as you'll see here, all of these are 0 joules, and these 2 here on the bottom are just the buffs from the gear she's wearing. But this 0 joule attack up here, this is what the staff lets you do. And as you can see, the damage here is very, very weak, but what it comes down to is it's a 0 joule attack. So if Nina runs out of joules, she still does have a way to fight, even if it's only 2 attacks worth. Which is, it's not bad, it's pretty nice to have. So as always, you're going to want to use Drain Dimension to boost up Nina's damage when you're using her. This is extremely important because Nina just does not have enough magic attack without it to be able to launch the kind of attacks and do the kind of damage she needs to be a very effective unit. But with it, now we're looking at some good stuff. So let's just take a quick look at the light AoE just so you can see how much damage it does. This hasn't changed at all from the global version, but we're looking at a good 13k damage to dark units. And I know that doesn't seem like a lot when you start looking at like the video I put out yesterday and Gerard was doing like 20,000 damage, but you have to remember that Nina does not have a genuine charge up. Drain Dimension is at best a mini charge up. You're never going to get super significant damage out of it, no matter how hard you try. All you're going to be able to do is get very good damage out of it. It's not going to be insane damage. But the nice thing about this is if you're running, let's say, a Mieliki leader skill, and you have her Nenso, all of a sudden you have a bunch of cast time reduction that's going to help you get this attack off faster. Now, unfortunately, because the attack is so slow to begin with, you're going to have to pay very close attention to enemy count if you want to use it effectively. Otherwise, the enemies are literally going to just walk right out of your AoE, and there's pretty much nothing you can do about it. It's unfortunate that the Summoner Kit is so slow. Maybe one day they'll fix it a little bit better, but until that day, we just kind of have to deal with it. It is nice, though, to have such a large AoE and have sure hit. So I'm going to now turn off speed because I did this once before and I messed something up. But one of the things that I did during it is I forgot to turn off speed because this attack goes by really fast. So this is the major change between a regular summoner and Nina. And this is what makes Nina a viable summoner compared to other summoners. It's this attack right here. And the reason it's more viable is because the attack comes out faster. It is a light-based 38 joule 420 cast speed attack as opposed to the 200 cast speed attack of the other ones. And for those who are not too familiar with how cast speed works, the higher the number, the faster it's going to cast. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details about why that is. There have been plenty of guides written on how count manipulation works, and I highly suggest you go read them. I believe there is a guide posted on Reddit right now in the compiled or the compiled information thread. If you haven't checked that out yet, I highly suggest you check it out because it's got a lot of great info on the game itself. So let's go ahead and take a look at this attack and see what it looks like. So basically, she just drops a large rat on the enemy and they die. It's literally that simple. So unfortunately, there isn't like a ton of graphical detail in these attacks. We take a look at the 0 Joule attack here real quick. And yeah, that is the main difference. Just those two attacks right there. And those two attacks are really all the summoner needed to become a much more viable unit than it already was. There really isn't much else to say about Nina at this point. You already know how all of her jobs work. And the only thing you've really missing is the JE and maybe the Babel tactics. So one of the things about Nina is she is a limited unit, but she is a Babel unit, and this has been a trend for a lot of the Babel units, and in Japan, we're really not sure if this trend is going to continue. Babel obviously has finished in Japan, but what we're talking about is the Babel unit hard quests. And the Babel unit hard quests are hard quests that came out a very long time after Babel came out, unfortunately, but it did give us a way to raise Nina. So as you can see here, she has her own hard quest. You do have to clear the Babel Envy area, the Babel Envy chapters, all 10 of them, in order to unlock this hard quest after it comes to Global. So if you already have those chapters done, good for you. Once it comes to Global, you'll be ready and raring to go. But for those of you who feel like putting off your Babel story, I highly suggest you just get it over with. It's a tough pill to swallow. It gets really annoying in some places with the RNG, but it is worth doing. There have been a ton of events in Japan where you needed to complete certain Babel chapters, and having them all done meant you just automatically qualified for the reward in a lot of cases. So just get them done now, and then you just don't have to do them later. It's that simple. It kind of sucks. I'm not a huge fan of the Babel, the actual maps themselves. I feel like they'd be significantly more fun if I didn't feel like I needed to get the 3 all clear every single time for all the bonuses. But it is what it is. Just get it over with, and then you'll be ready for the future. Another thing to note is that in Babel, Nina had her OG skin, and outside of Babel, she didn't. Well, she did get it eventually, and here it is in all of its adorable glory. Nina is, without a doubt, the most adorable unit in the game, maybe other than Pamela. I don't know, it's a hard. Small Pam's pretty cute too. So anyways, that's really all I have to say on Nina at this point. So if you have any questions, like always, go ahead and post them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them in a timely manner. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do next. I'm not going to be doing Natalie, because once again, Natalie is just another unit that does not have a unique kit and has 3 jobs that you should already know how they function. She's probably, without a doubt, the weakest of the 3 Babel units that you just got, but I wouldn't overlook Natalie too much because she does have a relatively fast Wind Veil, which is not something that's particularly common in Global. I honestly am not even sure who has the Wind Veil other than maybe Hayate in Global. So she is a good unit. She's just not a great unit like Nina and Gerard. She's definitely not at the same level, but she is still a respectable unit. So if you like Natalie, she's definitely not necessarily bad to invest in, but honestly, since she's not limited, I really would not put shards into her. I think that's a bad idea, personally. But you do you. Thanks for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.